Hello, welcome to the March 18th, 2025 Club Cubase live stream. My name is Greg Undo, and I'm the host of the live stream today. If you have not participated in a live stream before, how it works is you could simply ask questions in the live chat field or send questions in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. When asking questions, if you could specify which version of Cubase you're running, so if it's 12, 13, or 14, also which level of Cubase, so if it's Cubase LE, AI, Elements, Artist, or Pro, and the operating system that you're using, that information is always helpful. If you don't see an immediate response to your question, as the live stream goes on, I may get to be 30 minutes behind the live questions. We will go through all the questions chronologically as asked. So if we could avoid asking the same question repeatedly, that would be appreciated. Just makes it faster for us to go through and answer more questions. And we should have an index of all topics that are covered in today's live stream pinned to the top of the comments field. So if you wanted to search for that after with timestamps, and if you want to search for topics have been covered in the previous 5 years of live streams, you could go to cubaseindex.com and you could search for topics that have been covered there. We want to thank Jan from Stockholm for creating the wonderful site. I just used it yesterday. Also, we have two people that serve as moderators, Agent K and Jazz Dude. We want to give a special thanks to them. They're not Steinberg employees. They just do it to make it a better community experience. And we'll give a special thanks to Jazz Dude for all of his work with the unofficial Cubase Nation Discord. It's a wonderful resource of information for the Steinberg community. So once again, my name is Greg Undo. I work for Yamaha Corporation of America, and I primarily focus on Steinberg products. And I'm the host today. I'm presenting from outside of Washington, D.C. area in the United States, in Alexandria, Virginia. And if you're watching, please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. All right, wonderful to see Taylor from Music from World Peace Records from Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. Used to always drive through Pine Grove, coming back from visiting my aunt and uncle in Schuylkill Haven. And his first question is, in frequency EQ, when should I or should I not use linear phase? So sometimes when we have a particular like channel EQ up, so when we come over, let's say we go to our inserts here and we go to our EQ and we'll say, okay, we'll go to frequency EQ. So, and we'll have a linear phase. So, generally how most EQs work is you kind of will, boost a particular frequency. And then as we do that, that can cause phase anomalies within the audio source. So if we wanted to have it be a linear phase where the phase isn't really having an impact, we could just simply turn that on. So linear phase technically is going to be a better EQ choice sonically, but if we were trying to emulate a particular EQ, many like plugins that are emulating EQs. So if I came over and we looked at one of the Pultec style EQs, let's say we go to the EQ P1A, you're probably not going to see a linear phase option because it wasn't in the hardware. And part of why people like particular EQs is because there's a particular workflow or settings or tricks that they've used, kind of using classic hardware. And that classic hardware probably wasn't linear phase, but people still like it. So if you wanted to be able to kind of mimic kind of older sounds, that's when you probably would not want to have a linear phase EQ. So, but technically it's a higher quality EQ with less artifacts. So, you could always try to engage it in frequency if you want and see how it makes a difference. And you could just simply turn it on and off by going to each band and going to the upper left-hand corner, and you could activate the linear phase mode directly there. Music for World Peace Records asks, next question, does working in 96K make a difference in the performance when using generate harmonies or very audio extreme pitch changes? So it's not going to really, as you're kind of working, I haven't done a critical A/B, but when you're, generally when you are working, especially when you're slowing stuff down. So if you're doing kind of a lower harmony, and you're doing time stretching, having a higher sample rate theoretically could give you more data to work with for the algorithm to perhaps sound a little better. There's a lot of people that are sound designers, and they tend to work at very high sample rates because they may take like a sound that they record, and if they record it and then they want to drop the pitch significantly, if there's more sample, if the bit depth and sample rate are higher, there's more information to work with when you do extreme changes. So you may not notice unless it's going to be kind of an extreme range of the generating harmonies and you edit that. So I think that you'd be fine for the most part at 44.1 or 48K. But if you're doing kind of extreme settings, then 96K would give more data to kind of work with when you're utilizing very audio. So as you're doing your different like audio processing within very audio here. So if we wanted to just kind of look at it, so as you do processing, it's going to give you, just more data for calculations. Okay, next question from Music for Real Peace Records asks, sometimes muting an event in MIDI key editor whites out the event, and sometimes the event disappears like it was deleted. Is there a preference that makes a difference? All right, so let's say if I come over here, we'll take a bunch of notes and mute them. There could be one preference we'll look at. So let's say I want to grab my mute tool, and as we do this, we can see now there's one preference or setting. So say we'll do editing. I think it's like treat muted events like deleted events, but let's see if that carries over. See if it's in editing general. If it's in audio, maybe. All right, so in audio, there's a preference for treat muted events like deleted, so that they don't play, but I don't think that has any impact on the MIDI. So if I come here, let's say if we mute those events, doesn't seem like it has an impact, but make sure that you're not accidentally deleting. But if you're kind of selecting multiple notes, it looks like it just kind of mutes those selection as expected on my end. But let's see, make sure you're using the mute tool, and there may be another. If I come here, if we go to edit, there may be just another. So I'm not sure if you're. Let's see if it's. So let me know if you're using the tool to do it, or if you're using kind of the key command, which is Option or Alt M. So if I have these notes selected and I hit Option or Alt M, it'll mute the events versus as opposed to the tool. So let me know, Taylor, which way you're muting the MIDI notes, but it seems like they don't disappear and they just kind of show as white to me, indicating that those notes are muted. All right, great to see Stefan from Sweden. Always fantastic to see Jazz Dude. We have Tim K. He says, grateful to be joining once again from Zeist in the Netherlands. His cat Buddy is waving a paw. Hello to my cat Steven and Mark Raven's dog Stella and other pets that are nearby. It's good to have a good pet presence on Club Cubase live streams. All right, so we have Manfig checking in from Santa Barbara, California. It's Cubase 14 and Windows 11 sending greetings. It's a beautiful part of the country. Right, we have Marvin Earl just saying, what's up, Greg? Thanks for joining us today. All right, Dallas LaRue from Las Vegas says, I bought a Meano Pro Studio interface that has a loopback. I can now record television into Cubase. What exactly is loopback? So it basically will allow you to take like what you're sending to, like what's coming out of your audio interface. So like often we may have like all of my audio here in this particular interface is now coming out of so Cubase is sending it directly out to my audio interface here, my Steinberg UR24C, and that goes to my monitoring signal. But if I wanted to send this into a tool like OBS, now what we could do is with the loopback, I could choose a different port. So I'll see all my ports available here. So you may have just a button that says loopback, enable loopback, or you may have like a different driver that's set up, one for DAW, one for streaming. So if I wanted to send this to the output of Cubase to another application, I could just come over here and say, okay, for my streaming application or for Zoom, Microsoft Teams, we could just come over here and say, let's just do our streaming. So I have the same audio interface, but I could have it just conversely come right over here and just say, okay, let's take the output from Cubase and without having to repatch anything, send that to another program. And if you wanted to record audio, we could do that as well. So let's say if we come over, let's go to our YouTube. Okay, so let's say I just want to take, all right, so I'm going to take the output of my computer now and send it to my streaming driver of my audio interface. And now what I could do is I'm going to add an audio track. So if I want to record from, I would just say, okay, we're going to select our hardware input. And here I'm going to say we're going to select the streaming input from our audio. We'll go ahead and solo this. And now when I hit record, so we'll just hit record in Cubase. And I play the
on
video.
the comp tool in Cubase. It is a powerful feature that can help you stitch together the perfect take. So with my cycle loop active,
so let's say, so now we've routed the audio from another program directly into Cubase. So as I hit play,
on the comp tool in Cubase, it is a powerful feature that can help you stitch together the perfect take.
So this way we could have one audio interface that could do like multiple functions and route audio from another program into Cubase and audio out of Cubase to another program and your monitoring system. So let me know if that makes sense for you, Dallas. Thanks for joining us. Wonderful to see Tim Weinheimer from Mission Viejo, California. All right, Musictron says, are there any talks to make SpectraVision the standalone system app? So there's Supervision, which is a metering tool. So if we come over here, we could just say under the analyzer, so there's Supervision, which is like, incredible metering functionality here. So, you could see a wealth of different meters. There's also Spectral Layers, which is in itself can run as an ARA extension. So if we wanted to come here, we could run it as an ARA extension or as a standalone program. So let me know which one. So Spectral Layers can run as a standalone program and as a kind of integrated into a DAW through ARA2. Supervision is going to be a plugin, and that's going to be tied to Cubase or Nuendo, or if you have a Yamaha console, you can have the VST rack software as well. So I think Spectral Layers is already standalone, but Supervision I think will be kind of tied to Steinberg software to make it a great benefit to Steinberg users. All right, we have a question from Alexa O. Hello, how to adapt the grid if some part of the song have a break and the instrument starts in a different tempo. So let's say if, we have an instrument part here, so let's say, there is a warp tool. So let's say if we're looking at, a particular file here, so let's say, like if we wanted to adapt the grid to the existing file, so what we could do is there's a couple ways. One of the ways is just if you right click, we could choose to go to the warp tool. Now the warp tool has 3 modes. We could choose to warp grid. So I'll just take this and let's say, okay, this is where. And what we're going to do is we're not moving the audio file, but what we could do is just simply move the measures to speed up or slow down the tempo to match the existing material here. So if you have a tempo change, you could come right over here and just say, and I think if you hold down Shift, that will, we could kind of set the same tempo for all of the same values afterwards as well. So you could just basically come over here and move the bar line to match the existing music. So, but try selecting the warp tool. And you could also do a tempo change. But what the warp tool allows you to do is to kind of drag the grid to visually match up with the recorded material, whether it's MIDI or audio. So let me know if that's kind of what you're looking for. All right, we have Prezel Prescott saying, hi, Greg. We have Brian Sawyer joining us from Yuma, Arizona, who just moved. I hope your move is going well. Oh, and he got together with Michael Teams and his wife. That's so wonderful to hear. I wish I could have been there to hang out with both of you guys, but that was great. And we hope you're settling into your new property in Arizona well. Yeah, so you'd see Taylor from Music for Real Peace Records just saying he was using the mute tool when he was muting. So I haven't really come across anything that has, there are, like you could do a logical editor function that could delete muted notes, but I don't think that, so if you were doing something like that where we could say, okay, if we have a MIDI event selected, that we could just come over here. So let's say if we have selected notes using the mute tool, that those could be deleted. But I don't think that there's any preference that I'm aware of. I'll see if anything I'll kind of keep it in the back of my mind about how to do that. But it seems like, like when I've been working on it, they just kind of stay muted and stay kind of the color white to indicate that they are muted when we work on it. So All right, so we have Yash Desai says it's an email including a demonstration where you use Apache SX to strum chords. So thanks for sending email. So let's say if I want to come here to this. So one of the things that we do, let's say we just have a, we look at it and we'll say, okay, we just have like a chord set up here on our nylon guitar, but if we just come over and just adjust my controller so I don't keep adjusting the volumes down here accidentally. All right. All right, so if we now want to come over and let's say we turn this on, one of the great things if you want to do kind of different guitar strumming is the ability to come over here and let me just adjust. Let me just adjust the volume up here. Here, I'll just reload the patch. So, and once you go into like the Apache SX, there's all sorts of great presets that you can find under guitar. So you could just come over here and say, okay, I want to do like Latin pop. And as you play chords, so you could just kind of load up various presets directly here and have if you wanted to do even like a quick like country guitar, so you could play with the different arpeggios to kind of get guitar strumming effects right there. Okay. All right, so wonderful to see Nick checking in from a lovely sunny evening in Essex in the UK. All right, so we see music for Real Piece Record just says the mute delete is random without making any preference changes. So I haven't come across that, but if you have a project that you want to email me at clubcubase@steinberg.de, I'd be happy to take a look at it for you. All right, we see John Barry checking in from a sunny English Riviera saying hi to everyone. We see John Costigan is checking in from Kenosha, Wisconsin. All right, we see Roby Becky. Great to see you back. All right, Michael King from Ghana says he's learning a lot today. Okay, and we see hi Greg, much love from Croatia. And my chat field just jumped. It's a nice sunset here. Hi to all area. It's One-Eyed Dog Mini as well. So, all right, we'll have Mini accept away from Buddy, Tim K's cat. All right, InDrop asks, hi Greg, I want to be able to add new tracks and have them match the color of the folders where they are located. Is this possible? Thanks. All right, so let's say if we have a number of tracks here. So it could be a quick preference. Let's say we have like 4 tracks. Okay, let's make all these tracks the same color. And we'll put them into folder. And we'll change the All right, so let's say if we go to your preferences or settings, I think if we go to under user interface, track and mix console channel colors, that we could use the previous track color. So let's say if I come and we apply that, so now as I add a track, it says I add 2 tracks, it's going to employ the same track colors. So try adjusting this preference. So under user interface, track and mix console channel colors, to just use the previous track color, and then it will use the same colors. I generally have it for +1 so that it automatically increments, but you could switch that preference there. All right, so we see from Alexa O says many thanks, that is it. All right, wonderful to see Matt Elston on. I think Matt moved recently. I can't remember the new town. I think he moved, if memory serves. All right, we see Michael Teams checking in from Weatherford, Texas. Jealous that you got to hang out with Brian. That's been fun. All right. And President Prescott's checking in from LaGrange, Georgia. Just saying hello to everyone. We have Benny checking in from Sweden. Kerwin Young from Atlanta. Says just wrapped up a mix in time to hang out today. Just saying hi to Nick, Jazz Dude, and Michael Teams. All right, so you see Music for Real Peace Records says next time I get the mute anomaly, I will make a video and send it to you. Maybe you could spot something I'm missing. So yeah, and sometimes if you could do like a screen capture, even if you have like OBS, or I think there's a tool in Windows and Mac OS to do it. Sometimes, I see like videos that are done on like Facebook groups, and it's almost like kind of working with the Zapruder film where people have their cell phone out and it's shaky and they're missing like, it's like go like half a centimeter to the left so I can see this parameter. So if you do like a screen capture, that's always great as well. But yeah, please record it and send it to me. 808 King just says, hi Greg, what's the latest with the e-licenser dongle now? Can I trash it yet? Thank you, Greg. So if all of your licenses are on the Steinberg licensing, you don't have to have it connected. I wouldn't trash it. But, try disconnecting it and see if all your stuff runs, or if you need to transfer stuff. I think the e-licenser server is shutting down on May 20th of this year. So with that, make sure that you're actually have everything transferred over with, many of the programs have vouchers to transition to Steinberg licensing from your e-licenser. But try disconnecting it and see if everything is working in your system for all your Steinberg programs as you expect. All right, Michael Teams is granted Kerwin Young 1 gallon of Moose Tracks ice cream. Michael Teams wants everyone to whack the like button. All right, we have Lloyd Knight checking in from Hampton, Virginia. Thanks for joining. A fellow Virginian. So used to do a lot of studio work in Norfolk, right across the bay there. All right, we have Tiago checking in from Brazil. Thanks for joining us. All right, we have Yender from South Africa, from Jabulani. Thanks for being online with us. All right, so we have Lee Robert Foster checking in from a sunny but cold Sheffield, England. All right, we have a question. Are there any settings that have to do with the mouse scroll in Cubase 13 Pro? It seems like it's jumping a lot all over the place sometimes, although it works everywhere else. So there's no like real settings. There's some, I would say that like some scroll wheels can be super sensitive and tend, to be kind of like hypersensitive to functions, and Cubase will track that. The one mouse that comes to my mind that's kind of guilty of that, and it's problematic in many, many programs, is the Apple Magic Mouse with their little scroll wheel thing or their scroll gesture. So I had issues, and I, would get a $5 Logitech mouse personally over an Apple Magic Mouse any day. So if you're doing like an Apple Magic Mouse, I would say that there's issues with that particular mouse, but other ones I haven't had any issue. And I usually switch. I have, lots of mice that I forget somewhere when I was traveling, and would just buy a cheap mouse on the road, and never had problems. But if it's an Apple Magic Mouse, that can be problematic. All right, wonderful to see Mark Rabin from Montana on. Saying hi to everyone, and everyone give a big woof to Stella, Mark's dog. We hope Stella's doing well. Right, Michael Teams is on fire with ice cream distribution with 1 gallon of pralines and creams for Tiago. Tim Weinheimer sending an ice cream request of Cubase Chocolate Crunch Ice Cream. All right, wonderful to see Gerald Elion from Martinez, California. All right, so a question, will Cubase Pro 11 still work with the dongle after the e-licenser shutdown? So as long as it's licensed and, so it's your existing license will continue to work as it has. It's just you won't be able to activate a new license on e-licenser. So yeah, your license will still work. All right, so we have Mark Rabin saying hi to Gerald. All right, Craft Basket asks, hi, when I put to FX channel reverb in a group channel, reverb go away and not working in Cubase 14, why? Okay, so let's say if, all right, we'll just throw a quick loop on here. Okay, so let's say drop that loop in. All right, so I'm going to put, we're going to put effects channel in a group channel. So let's say I route this to a group. Okay, so I'm going to add a group channel to this drum loop. All right, so as we do this, and on my group channel, I will go to my sends, and let's add a reverb. So just kind of right click. All right, so we'll just choose to add an effects channel. Let's put reverb on. So now that reverb is on the group channel. So it looks like it's working as expected. So this track is going into the group. The group is then feeding the reverb via the send. So if we want it to be dry, we want to add more reverb in. So but one thing is sometimes people may like add an effects channel here, and when you go to add, let's say if I put an effects channel on that particular track, make sure that when you do this, sometimes people, may solo, but you could choose for the effects channel. I could route this to the group, or I could route it to, so we could route the effects channel to different sources. But if the effects channel is on the group, so we have our loop, it's feeding this group, and we go to our group, we could blend this in more. So let me know if that's how you have it set up. That seems to be kind of working as I would expect. All right, Michael Teams has given Tim Weinheimer 1 gallon of chocolate crunch ice cream. All right, we have Daniela Da Vinci Girl on. Thanks for joining us today from, I think it's Bochum, Germany, or Bochum. All right, Gerald Ely is giving a big woof to Stella. Okay. All right, we have Stryker Bay sending greetings from Bavaria. Thanks for joining us today. All right, Nick is saying hi to Kerwin, Mark Rabin, Jazz Dude, Michael Teams, John Koskin, and Gerald Ely. All right, and Michael Teams has given me and my family 1 gallon of lemon meringue pie ice cream. Sounds like a great spring flavor. At our house, it looks like spring, but it's still a bit chilly. Probably be nice this afternoon. See, Michael Teams has forgotten his question. Okay, reading through comments here. All right, Lee Robert Foster asks, tech question, is there any news on a potential overhaul of the download manager since 14 Pro I have to manually install everything, plus now I have nothing in my library, very bizarre. So I haven't run into that. There was an update like in late November, kind of before the holidays, to the Steinberg, to the Steinberg download assistant. But I haven't had any problems, and I put it on like 4 computers in the last, couple months, probably since January. I put on like 4 different computers. But there was like a website security certificate that needed to be updated. So make sure that you have updated to the latest version of that. And if you get any like particular messages or it's just not responding, if you want to send it to me at clubcubase@steinberg.de, I'd be happy to take a look at it. See, Mark Raven says his dog Stella loves Cubase so much. All right, so we have Da Vinci Girl says, I'm not a fan of the E-licenser, and see that I use more and more the 11 dongle version. So the dongle is the E-licenser version. It says it's much more handy. I'm not a fan of the way Steinberg is going now. Still running my Fairlight EVO on Windows 7. So, Yeah, I think, resoundingly even people that I think were hesitant moving away from the USB e-licenser to the dongle, from the dongle to the new Steinberg licensing, I think it's been pretty overwhelmingly positive response to the change. So, but yeah, probably the latest stuff, obviously won't work on Windows 7 for certain functionality. All right, so you see Michael Teams says, he says, okay, I noticed when you start a new project, you go at it differently than I. Show how you start a new project and where you have it stored. Kind of vague in my description, but an issue for me. Okay, so when I do a new project, I generally do it from the hub. So it's like, okay, let's do a new project. If I'm using an existing template, I will, select one of the templates from over here. And if I'm just kind of starting like from scratch, I would choose create empty. And generally you have this setting should be on by default. If you switch this, it will say use default location, and it will kind of put your Cubase project into this particular folder. If you choose the default behavior is prompt, and I think this changed in version 11, is prompt for project location. So now when I say, okay, I want to start a project, it's going to now prompt me for the project folder. So let's say, okay, I want to come here and for my project, and think of every project being in a separate and unique folder. So we will say, okay, I want to put this in my documents folder, and I want to put this into, we'll select projects, and I'm going to define a new folder because we're starting a new project. And I come over here, we'll call this March 18th, 2025. So we'll say create. So now when we come over here and I go to record files, so say I add an audio track and I go to record, that's going to be placed into a subfolder for the audio, a subfolder within our defined folder. So we'll come over and let's look at, so we'll come over here to projects. Let me just, all right, so we go to our projects and we'll search for our March 18th, 2025. So now currently I haven't saved a project, but my one audio file that I recorded will show up here. So let's say I'm going to add another audio file. We'll call this Michael Teams. And as we go look into our Finder now in that folder, we can see that we have the Michael Teams file automatically placed into that project folder. When I go to save this project, we will now come over here and say, okay, let's save. And I haven't given it a name yet. It's going to place it into that same folder. And we'll say for Michael Teams. So we go back to look in that folder. We now have our CPR file, our audio folder with all the audio files, the images for those particular audio files. If we did an auto save, that would show up. If we did direct offline processing, we would see a new edits folder, but they're all within kind of the folder that we defined here as being the March 18th, 2025. So let me know if that's helpful for you, Michael. All right. Brian says, Waldo says woof to Stella. So we have intercontinental pet communication going on. All right, so we see from Beat Boy, just says how to blend vocals. I use Cubase 12. So one of the things that you could do, like, if you're using vocals, and I get this question a lot with like background vocals, but let's say if I am, let's see if I have this in my recent list. All right, let me just open it up. But say where I have a lot of background vocals. So often, like when people want like their background vocals to sound a little more, let me just, here we go. This project I was looking for. So when you want to get like background vocals to kind of blend together, is taking all the vocals and kind of sending them to a group. So let's say I have like a lot of harmony vocals coming in here.
It was like a brand new place. Felt my fears all fly away. Don't it make you feel good?
So let's say I want to take these tracks here, my background vocals, and I've set all of these to a group track. So we'll go to our group track, and what this is going to allow us to do is just to say, okay, as we're here, so all my background vocals are coming in here. So if I want to take that, and what we can do is just kind of put a compressor on this to kind of just make it sound a little more kind of homogeneous so that they kind of blend together. So often just like a bit of compression can really make the vocals kind of blend together a little better. So let's say we'll just, so we adjust the levels here. So we kind of listen to this phrase without the compression. So now we put the compression on.
Don't it make you feel good?
So now that we could actually kind of take all the background vocals, we could send it to a group, and this group we could do our processing on it. So if we wanted it to sound like a little wider, so we could use like a stereo enhancer, another plugin that we could use to kind of make as an insert here. So I come under my modulation. We have a plugin called Cloner. So we just come here. And this just kind of puts like a little detuning on it. So let's say we're getting into the chorus here. So just kind of putting like a little compression, maybe like a little stereo enhancer, kind of make it sound a little wider.
All at once he kissed my face. The world was like a brand new place. Felt my fears all fly away. Don't it make you feel good?
So if I was kind of taking that off. now we turn this on.
Don't it make you feel good? Knowing that
So kind of often sending them to a group and doing processing for compression, maybe a little EQ, like a little pitch shifting for background vocals can help them blend together very well. All right. We have Uno Momento just saying hi from Finland to a bunch of people. Thanks for being such a loyal attendee. All right, so we have Craft Basket says, I'm your first time viewer. Don't know why YouTube sent me notifications. Well, hopefully you learned some tips and tricks on your Cubase. And welcome here. And we hope to see you on future live streams. All right, wonderful to see Pablo on. All right, and Pablo saying hi to me and all the Cubasers. See, John Koskinen had the same question Michael Teams did. Let me know if that's helpful for you, Michael. Pablo is sending woof, meow, and pet words to everyone. All right, we have Arif B saying hello from the Netherlands. All right, Michael Team's happy to see Pablo on. Okay, sorry, my chat field jumped on me. All right, so Michael Teams just is making a comment to John Koskinen and says, I know it seems every time I start a project, it ends up scattered in different folders. One other thing to be aware of is a quick preference, like if you're importing files from different folders or loops from different folders, one preference for file management that is also helpful to be aware of is if you come over to your preferences or settings, and we go to editing to audio, there's a function here where it says copy all files to the project folder. So as soon as we activate this, so when we go to our settings, we could say open the options dialog, but we could also just by default. So if I grab an audio file that's in a different folder outside of my project folder, what I can do is as I drag that in, it automatically gets moved into the project folder with this. So that's another preference I probably should have mentioned earlier. But once you leave that on, it's one of those things where you get this little pop-up window that allows you to make the selection, and you have a don't ask me this question again option that a lot of people select, and then that function is disabled from showing up again. So check to make sure, again, on preferences or settings, to editing, to audio, to copy all files to the project folder. All right, so we see Lloyd Knight, VSTi / hardware synths and electric bass. How can we get that professional glued in sound? Any tips? So there's, let's see. I'll show just like an electric bass part here. See if it's on my computer here. Had a lot of projects didn't transition over. So let's say we want to do, this is one I played bass on for, it's a hot mesh track. This is a project that Pablo, Michael Teams, and Gareth and I work on. So with this, in this example, I got kind of just a quick backing track. So it's the backing track here, and this is like bass part that I recorded. So if we just say I want to take this and we solo the bass. And if we want to just so say So a lot of times I think one thing that is often dismissed is where people are trying to solve an audio problem when it's an arrangement problem. You know, if you listen to any of the great classic recordings, you know the Beatles were so good at it. Steely Dan was really exceptional. Even Creedence Clearwater Revival. Look at Boston's work. Supertramp, Pink Floyd, they really got their arrangements together. So I think that there's a lot of times that, I was just working on a project for a friend and I just kind of replaced a lot of the sounds. A lot of sounds there's a lot of keyboard sounds I find that are really good when you're playing them by themselves, or if you're playing in a band and you want that sound to kind of cut through a live mix. But sometimes if everything is trying to cut through the mix, nothing is cutting through. So often I find many mix problems are solved by kind of better arrangements and choosing sounds that aren't kind of fighting. When I look at a particular, let's say if we open up like a sampler track, how I try to envision a mix is kind of envisioning a piano keyboard. So when you come over here, you can say, okay, I need something in this frequency range, I need something in this frequency range, and I need something in this frequency range. So if we were to think of a drum set, I could have my bass drum, my toms, I could have my snare drum and my cymbals over here. So that is kind of harmonically balanced. So when we think of a bass part, people always think, oh, the bass has to have a lot of low end. But if you want the bass to cut through, you have to have the right amount of low end in relation to the mid-range and the high frequencies. So if you don't have any high frequencies like in this, you could hear that the bass could be pretty bright. It has that high end information, and that allows it to kind of cut through the mix and to sit better in the mix because its frequencies are fairly balanced between the lows, mids, and highs. So don't try to do like such extreme things, and I see people often, because we can have so many tracks. Like in my friend's project, he had, a piano, a Wurlitzer, 4 guitars, an organ, so it's like, it's like a 9-piece band trying to not kind of conflict with each other. So sometimes taking simplifying arrangements and try to think of solving a problem in the arrangement. Like when you hear Dark Side of the Moon, the beauty of that is not necessarily the recording. The recording is great. Supertramp's Breakfast in America, great recording. But the arrangements make sure that the instruments aren't themselves clashing. And really good musicians, like studio musicians that play together, they know how to not conflict with each other. And that's why certain studio groups, like, think of Motown, they have 3 guitars and they're not ever playing the same chord voicing. And they just kind of look at each other like, okay, you play up, I'll play down, you play in the middle. And they just kind of made the arrangements work so that the mixes would naturally kind of fall into place. So consider the arrangements of kind of making can have a really profound impact on your mix. All right. And then you'll kind of get that glued in sound, Lloyd. And if you have a project that you want to share, I'd be happy to kind of take a stab at, so I could kind of show you on a particular project if you want to share it with me at clubcubase@steinberg.de. All right, Mark Raven saying hi to Jan in Stockholm. Mark Raven is wondering if anyone is buying the loop offer from Steinberg. All right, Prezel Prescott asks, hi Greg, how to set up Nuendo 13 in order to collaborate with others on a project? So what a lot of people will do in Nuendo is, so there's different levels of collaboration. So if you want to record someone in, like, you have a great musician who's going to record a great guitar part or sing a vocal, they're not with you physically or in the same location. What you could do is use VST Connect. So a lot of people use that for collaboration. So when I come over here, and if you go to the VST Cloud, so here we could create a VST Connect, and once we have this kind of set up, you could basically have someone download a free software and be able to record them into your session. So your session would be routed out to them so that they could hear it on their end. They record their parts into their audio interface and record it back in. So with Nuendo, you get a VST Connect SE, which would allow you to do 2 tracks. And if you buy the Pro version, that will allow you to do up to 16 tracks of remote recording at one time. So for that level of collaboration, now Nuendo, if you wanted to share the project, if people are on the same network, we could actually come over here and we could activate the network collaboration. So at this point, we could just say, okay, let's set up our project sharing permissions, and you could assign, you can say, okay, we want to share this project. We're going to take these particular tracks and send them, and let the vocal editor do vocal edits. We could let the sound effects editor do his sound design, and he can touch his tracks, but not the other person's tracks. And this way people could be working collaboratively on a project using kind of the network permissions and the network collaboration that's built into Nuendo. So let me know if that makes sense for your question. And some people could load up a project on OneDrive or Google Drive, and will, have different versions and do work like that. So a couple of different approaches. Okay. Pablo is, instead of the Loopback, he's going for Groove Agent expansions. All right, so we see DaVinci Girl says, Greg, can you give me $135,000 for new hardware? And the KVR forums are a lot of people discussing the negative sites of VST3. It's total over-engineered now, no more simple to use. So I don't really, maybe there's discussions in KVR, but it seems like the whole world is pretty much transitioned. I think the only plugin that I think is still waiting to transition might be, there might be a synth or something like that, but I would say, some of the big holdouts were Universal Audio. They're all VST3. Also, I think the Sound Toys, they're all VST3 now. I think Lexicon is working. They're kind of in testing for the final parts of VST3. So there's obviously a lot of advantages to VST3 plugin format that, there's a lot of companies that don't take advantage of all the capabilities of VST3, but it's obviously the most widely used plugin format in the world. So it seems like all but a few companies have transitioned to VST3, and most people will write in VST3 format and then convert it to other plugin formats from there. But I don't have $135,000 to give you. Sorry. All right. Babel says, hey, Greg, when I change the shortcut key command, it doesn't change in the hover over, for example, the tools. Is there something I'm doing wrong? So these may show kind of default settings. So let's say if I come over here, so these are kind of showing the default settings. And I don't think that these are dynamically linked to if you modify key commands. So let's say if I go to mute tool and I change this to Command Option Shift M. So I think it's going to show the default key commands, but let's take a look and see if as I hover over here, yeah, so it's showing kind of the default key commands and not user modified. But if you wanted to check for your user modified, we could just kind of come over here and you could search for. So I'm just going to change mine back. So I think that's kind of normal behavior where it's going to immediately just kind of look for, let's say, we'll just get to our mute tool, make sure I signed it back. So I think that is kind of the intention, is to show kind of the defaultly assigned keyboard shortcuts when hovering over. All right, Nick is multitasking today, so he'll be popping in and out, but he's whacked the like button. So hope you're doing well, Nick. Thanks for popping in and out. All right, so Babel just says, how do I make key command only my delete key? For some reason, when I try to add delete as my key command, it won't let me until already I have a different key command in there. So some keys may be kind of fixed for functionality, so at kind of the operating system level. But as you saw, I was able to just kind of change the key command from an existing key command. But, sometimes, some keys are kind of in the operating system. It could be kind of more hard assigned, but if you wanted to change, so let's say if I type in my delete key here, so we could just search. I'm going to select the keyboard here, and then when we search, so the delete key will be set up for delete. So you can change that or just click on the trash can and try to erase the existing key command and then reassign the delete key to a different function. So try just to when you click on the keyboard here, just to the left of the search, then whatever key you hit, that will automatically show up so that you could find exactly what the function is, and then once you're there, you can select that and just remove that key assignment to that particular key. All right, So we see from Troca in Portugal, says Sensei, how can I use a new feature of audio signal thing? I'm on Cubase 14 Pro, not sure how to trigger it, but you already replied to this one ton. It says bet. So let me know what the audio signal thing is, what you mean by that, Troca. So, if we're, like if we want to see what our audio signal is, like if you're not getting audio signal, make sure that change sample rates on that, unfortunately. Let me just revert. So if you're not getting audio signal, so you could, go to your studio setup. So make sure that you have under the ASIO driver, the driver for your audio interface, and that once you have that defined, if you hit F4, you could set your inputs and outputs tabs here to the available inputs and outputs on your interface. And you should be able to get signal, but if I'm fear that I'm misunderstanding, so maybe if you could clarify for me, I would appreciate it. All right. So Pablo says he loves that singer, so I'm not sure if that's Hot Mess or which project it was. All right, we have, I don't know if I pronounce it his Harold or his Sherald. It says, greetings from DMV, nice day today. So we're running Cubase 14 through Windows. I wonder if there's a way to see the rack tab in Halion 7, the media section for several instruments versus multiple Halion tabs. Okay, so you want to see the rack tab Halion 7 in the media section for several instruments. Okay, so if it's over here, so let's say if I go to media, so I'm not sure if you want to see in media bay here, so let's say if we come over to our VST instruments and let's say, okay, we go to our Halion 7. So here we could see kind of all the different instruments there, kind of broken by category, but if we go, let me just add Halion 7 as an instrument. All right, so I'll just go to my advanced tab here. So now I could see kind of all of my sounds, and kind of what's cool about this inside of Halion is this could be completely undocked from, so if I wanted to look at this, I could now come over here and see all of my sounds in Halion and just kind of load them up. So if I have this selected, here we could choose to see all. I could see all my user or factory sounds. All right. So if there's a way to use the rack tab in Halion 7 in the media section for several instruments. But if we want to, just come over, so here we could see kind of the instruments are kind of broken down by category when we go into our media tab here. But if we go over to, let's say, so if once we're here, we could say, let's go to our Halion 7. But I think that we could still come over here and search. So let's say I was looking for, let's say oboe. Here it will automatically search through all of the oboe sounds that are in Halion 7. So if I say sweep, this would search for anything that's a sweep. So even though it's not, we don't have a specific category defined, but we could just say, okay, I'm looking for whirly kind of, we could just say, okay, I'm looking for a whirl. So you say, oh, okay, I could come over here and just kind of, okay, I want a whirly and pad, and just double click, and now we're. So if you wanted to see everything else available over here, you could just kind of type in a particular name. So let's say, P bass. And now we could just kind of come over here and, we could just say, look for P bass or look for J. And, so, look for word presets that have the word silk in the title. And now you could just search through all the different Halion libraries. So let me know if that makes sense, what you want to do. Thanks for joining us today. All right, my chat field jumped way down. Let me just. All right, finding my spot. All right. Okay, so you see Michael Teams. This is in regards to the file management. It says your way is so different mine. I think it might be that you're on the Mac. I don't have that window that opens. I assume I have a different window opening as the format is different. So I think it's really, when we go to the new project here, it'll just open up the Windows File Explorer. So it's really just kind of setting up, but the process is, whether you're using kind of Windows File Explorer or Mac Finder, just simply define your folder there and define a new folder for each new song. And if you have problems, just send me a screenshot of what it looks like, or I could walk you through it remotely online if needed. All right, Arma Gid says, hello, great question for you. How can you make the cycle marker jump right to wherever I click within the track with range selection tool without pressing P? Okay, so there is a preference for the range to follow selection setting. So let's go to your preferences or settings. So if you're on Windows platform, it's going to be the edit menu. So we'll come over here, and I think it's just going to be under editing. Cycle follows range selection. So editing, and you'll see here cycle follows range selection. So right now, as I make a range selection, I could just come right here, and the cycle is automatically following. And if cycle is enabled, I could just take that section, select just a small portion, and the cycle will automatically be engaged and turned on. So let me know if that's helpful. All right, JD asks, Greg, my audio interface can be selected normally via Studio Setup, and it appears as an input in the audio connections, but is not an option in output or control room. All drivers show as working properly. Okay, so let me know which audio interface it is. But generally, when we go to your audio connections menu, so like right now, I don't have, make sure that you have the outputs connected. So here, what I often do, because I utilize the control room, is I have a stereo out and I choose for it not to be connected. If you go to, and I go to control room and I have my monitor here connected, but my project still has like a stereo out. Now there is a preference, because if you're using the outputs for maybe they're defined elsewhere for like an external effects, if we come over, I think it's going to be under VST, or maybe in control room. There is a function here for exclusive device ports for monitor channels. You could try to toggle that preference there. See if you're in Cubase Pro, if when you come over here that you don't have like, external effects or external instruments being utilized. But, it should, once you're here, you should be able to see your audio device listed here, the same as your driver that you have for the inputs. And then once you're there, you can just come right over here and set your what physical connection on your audio interface the audio is being sent out to. So if you could let me know like what audio interface, there are maybe some audio interfaces that have inputs but no outputs. Like if it's just a microphone on a laptop, there may not be an output on that particular microphone. It may be just an input capture device. And sometimes we have output capture devices, like some audio interfaces that will utilize like an HDMI connection just for outputting audio. So you get like, 6 channels of audio over the HDMI. So, and there's no input really on the HDMI. It's primarily an output format. So. All right. All right, so we see from Javalani says, I wish Cubase can focus on Dither plugin and give us one like on Wavelab Pro. So there is a Dither plugin. It's included, and I think it's the same one. It's in Wavelab. So if I come over here, it's the Lin 1 Dither. So if we come over, let's say if I want to put on my master output here. So let's say we want to do the Lin Dither. So you could do that. And when we go to Wavelab, there's probably additional dithering options in Wavelab. But the Lin Dither is also utilized. So if we want to just go to just quickly go to So when we come over to dithering, so when we come over here, we could just choose to have, so as we look at this, we'll say, I think if we just come over to the Lin Dither right here, so it's really kind of the same plugin that's available. There are some, different playback processing schemes that people will utilize for some dithering where you set like for legacy purposes, but Wavelab and Cubase will have the same dithering plugin. Michael Teams is just reminding everyone that Pablo is famous. Okay, so we see DaVinci Girl just asks, is there someone out there that is dedicated with wind instruments? I like to take paid lessons for my Yamaha WX5 and the VL70M. Yeah, so maybe if there's anyone on YouTube that they might be able to help you with that, or if you wanted like an in-person thing. See Mark Raven sharing a story about buying charcoal for his wife, and they took it away because people were abusing charcoal. All right. See, Pablo is just saying he used his Yamaha Akira Jimbo snare, and you can see like the bass line. He whacked the like button. I think that was for the Hot Mess track. So it's a lot of fun playing that. Should have time this weekend to get some of the bass tracks done for upcoming project. Tim K just says a nice discussion in arrangements. I listen to some bands that have a lot of members like the Pogues and Marvel, how they make it all come together. So yeah, I think sometimes it's hard in a production to figure out, when to stop. I think sometimes it's easier when you had limited options. Like I was like super happy 30 some years ago when I had a Proteus 1XR because it had like all these great sounds that were really functional and I could just get work done, and I just used that one box for the majority of my sounds, and that was kind of like the scope of all of the sounds that you have. And now it's just a tiny fraction of what you get that comes with Cubase. So sometimes just knowing it's really hard to know when to stop. And I asked this question, and I wish it was in the interview, but we did kind of a Steinberg spotlight with Hans Zimmer. And I asked the questions like, how do you know when the project is done? And he's like, and he just kind of burst out laughing because he's like, this is like the greatest question. And he's like, I know when it's done when the man comes and, asks for his project. The director's like, give me my music now. Otherwise, you could just keep adding and adding and adding and adding because you have kind of infinite possibilities. So I think it's really good sometimes just to limit, it's like I'm going to have one keyboard, one guitar part, and, kind of make it sound cohesive like those musicians are playing together. So it's easy sometimes to think that if you keep adding something that will solve the musical problem, but I think the arrangements, great arrangements are the ones where people say, oh, the projects just mix themselves because a lot of the hard work has already been done for you. All right, we see it's 14 degrees Celsius in Stockholm. From Jan. All right, so we see a question, not sure who it's from, but it says, hi, my laptop isn't adequate. I want to be able to use 16 processor hungry plugins per track. Also, high, heavy, RAM hungry VST instruments, maybe your 20 or 30 tracks. I definitely 100% don't want to freeze. So realize that, if we were to set up a project here, how processing occurs is always interesting. Let me see if this project made it on the arrangement. But sometimes, and I had a really fascinating discussion over dinner at the NAMM show in California with one of the performance architects at Steinberg. So let me just see if I have this project still. Or I'll just remake it here. So let's say, if you need, so if you're putting 16 tracks on one processor, 16 effects, then, you're going to, depending on the effects, I'm going to throw a super heavy effect on. So I'm just going to come over here to I'm going to drag an audio file over. I'll just drag just. Okay, so we'll have like this file over. All right, so when we put, I'm going to put just as an insert multiple plugins across here. So I'll put a delay on, and we'll do a multi-tap delay. Okay, so when I come over here, I'm going to load up a preset, and this one preset is going to have, multiple. Let me just see if I recreated that project or not. Just let me save a minute or two. All right, well, I'll just recreate it here. Sorry about that. Okay, so if we put 16, because everything is working in parallel, if we take this particular project here, and I'm going to duplicate this track here, and we'll duplicate this a number of times. Okay, and now we will come over. So we're going to have 8 tracks, let's say, and I'll just turn this down because this will sound nonsensical. All right, so we play this, and we look at so each of these presets has there's basically almost about 10 plugins per plugin. So we look at our audio performance here. And this is like a real extreme heavy CPU. We can see that we're not really taxing the system much. Now, if I choose to disable all of these tracks, and when we're having one kind of audio thread that's going through the processing, that each one of these can allocate a different CPU core. Okay, so I'm going to do another track here. So I'm going to duplicate this track once, and I'm going to keep loading on this track. And this is, and basically all the programs will do this. Now, not all programs will utilize the, the performance and energy efficiency cores, which Cubase does. So I will come over here. So I'm going to add this same plugin, but multiple times on one single track. Okay. So we have to realize that there's the audio performance versus CPU performance is going to be significantly different and inconsistent and not be the same. So if we overload one processor in your audio, then that could, in essence, make the entire computer slow down for audio performance. But you look at the CPU meter and say it's not using all of it, is because everything has to go on one single core when it's starting. That's just how all the audio processing is going on, because it's in series. So we'll add a couple more of these delays here. Okay, we'll add one more here. Okay, so we're going to have 7. We'll just load up 8 delays, so that's the same. So we would think that, okay, that these tracks would, roughly equate themselves on audio performance. So we'll take a look at this. So I'm going to just bypass. So this one track has 8 delays on it. Each of these tracks has 1 delay. So the same number of delays when we don't combine them. So I'm going to disable this track here. And as we saw before when we play, that we could play this back with our audio performance, without issue. But if we wanted to stack all of those particular tracks here, so I'm going to enable the one track that has 8. So we're running the same number of processes. So we'll come over here and I'll choose to enable, select it. So we're running basically 8 of the same plugins, but now all of these plugins on this will be disabled. And now we look at our audio performance, and we can see that is choking the computer. And so, each one of those delays we could think of as being like 10 plugins, but just to show you, because this is kind of going down a single processing thread, that the same number of plugins kind of being spread across will, if it's spread across different tracks, that can allocate to different CPU cores, where if it's all on one track, it's all going to go to one single CPU core. And, Cubase will have the best performance on any of the platforms, whether it's, Windows ARM, regular Windows on AMD Intel processors. It has the best performance on Mac OS, but you can see that just how the CPU, so when we use 8 plugins stacked on one track, the audio CPU starts to be unplayable. But if we disable this, and every DAW will work kind of the same way, and we re-enable the 8 tracks that we come over here, so we enable these. Now we could play, once these are enabled, we could play this without issues because it's able to kind of allocate the different CPU cores. So I don't think that you could take like 30 or 40 tracks, and maybe if they're smaller plugins have 16 plugins per track on a laptop. I mean, you could obviously freeze, but at a certain point realize that just how the CPU allocations are going to work. So all right, I'll save this project here. So let me know if that makes sense. So, and this is an M4 Max with 64 gigs of RAM. So probably has really exceptional single core processor. But so if you want to do 16 processor hungry effects per track, you're probably not going to be able to do it on any laptop. All right, so we have George checking in from Germany. Great to see you back on. Pablo is asking, is Nuendo released tomorrow? So Nuendo 14 will be released tomorrow. All right. Just see, not sure who it's from, but what's the cheapest laptop I could get from John Lewis in the UK? So maybe if there's someone in the UK that could answer, or if there's a better place to buy a laptop. All right. Wonderful to see Bratman Studio checking in from Whittier, California. Mark Graben saying, wow, VST Connect is Global Village Jam session. So it's kind of a peer-to-peer connection. So it's not like where multiple people could do it, but yeah, it works really well. All right, so we see George just asks, since the latest update 14.02, my horizontal scrolling mouse behaves different to the version before, but only in the mixer window. Is there a preference or mouse behavior in the mixer? So when we go to the mixer, if we have, let's say, a number of tracks, just add a bunch of tracks here. Okay, so one of the changes that they made was actually kind of reverting. So and it doesn't work in the lower zone mixer. I haven't gotten a good answer as to why. But if we kind of scroll here using our scroll wheel in the mixer, we go to the lower zone here, we can make those changes. If we are in the standalone mixer, one of the things that you can do in the standalone mixer is if you just hover the mouse in the meter area, here you could do the horizontal scrolling just by doing that in the meter area. So it's a larger target to hit. So that wasn't in 14.01. It was, I think, in 14.0. But the previous version to that function wasn't there, and that was restored back, I think, as a result of Club Cubase. So let me know if that's it for you. All right, DaVinci Girl says, I thought VST Connect, the top version for collaboration, is typical, not the best tool, because ask someone with FL Studio or other DAWs to use VST Connect, forget it. So, with VST Connect, it runs for the performer. You don't use it with another DAW. The person that you're recording has the VST Connect performer software, so they don't have to use any DAW at all. So if you wanted to, let's see if I have it installed. So if you go to the VST Connect Performer here, so again, it's any particular audio interface. You could just, so it's a standalone program. So once you are here in the VST Connect Performer, you are able to, the person that you're recording just opens this up. They don't open up any other DAW, and you could actually control all the settings remotely for the VST Connect. So the person that you're recording really just has to connect a microphone or their instrument into their audio interface, and then you could do everything else for them from VST Connect. So it's pretty easy for the other person. All right, Baserocious, always love that username. Says, I need help. I'm using the latest version of Cubase Pro after several tries to download and install. The loop set, bouncy vibrations, the audio doesn't seem to install, only the MIDI. So I don't think it's a loop set. I believe that the bouncy vibrations is a VST. I think it is a Groove Agent expansion. So try to see if it shows up if you go under, let's say, your media to VST instruments. And I probably don't have it installed on my new system yet. But if you go to Groove Agent, you'll probably see the bouncy vibrations show up here and not as a loop set. So I'll just take a quick look online just to make sure, but I believe that's the case. So you may see MIDI files for bouncy vibrations that are intended to use with Groove Agent. But as you can see, it's a Groove Agent expansion. So make sure that you load it. So if you come here, go to your VST instruments, go to Groove Agent or Groove Agent SE, and then you could load up your bouncy vibrations right from there. Pablo is just saying, you're right, Greg. So, don't know what I was right about. But. All right. Great to see Daniel on. Just drop by to say hi. See Pablo. Maybe it's the Pablo just saying about the lexicon. It's still not VST3 or Apple Silicon. Yeah, I applied to be a beta tester for them, but haven't really heard back. So hopefully they'll be working. I thought they were great plugins. I'm a big lexicon fan for many years. All right, so we see DaVinci Girl G-Data still is not compatible with Mellotron Mark II, and lots of programmers use things in MIDI CC that VST3 do not provide. So I think that, I'm not sure if G-Data, we can't make companies update, but all MIDI CCs are available in VST3, so I don't think that that's an issue. All right, so Daniel's saying, whoa, I missed this Cubase hospitality. Thank you very much, Michael. So I think you got 1 gallon of Cherry's Jubilee ice cream. All right, Mike Braley just asked, hi, Greg, is there a way to record the MIDI output from a VST instrument with the arpeggiator so I can later edit MIDI notes that were outputted? There's a couple different ways of doing it. So if it's the Arpachi, so let's say if I want to come over, so let's say if I have, I think I may have it on, let's say a bass here. So let's say, I'll just come. All right, so let's say we come over here and I'll just try, let's say a little. All right, so let's say if I just kind of solo this guitar part here and I hit record. All right, so when we did that, what I actually recorded was just kind of the chords that I was playing. Now, if we have this going, this instrument is going through the Arpachi SX, so I see kind of the block chords, and as we look at it, we'll say, okay, and it's playing back the arpeggios from the Arpachi, and if I wanted to take the results of this MIDI that's being generated, we can just come right over here and say, okay, we go to MIDI and we would say freeze MIDI modifiers. And now as we do that, all of the arpeggios are automatically rendered. We can see that the actual track, the plugin was turned off because the resulting image, the resulting data. Now, another way that we could record the arpeggio is I could turn this on and we'll see this little line here. So, and if we just kind of hover above, I'll drag this down. And now when I record and I have the arpeggiator on, the output of the arpeggio So now that we have recorded that, and if I didn't have my auto quantize on. I'm going to turn off my auto quantize, sorry. So I'll record, and now the output of the arpeggio is being sent to the MIDI. So now instead of having to do the MIDI freeze MIDI modifiers, if we move this line so that this line is below the plugin, that plugin is going to output the MIDI to Cubase in real time. So let me know if that makes sense for what you want to do, if that's the arpeggio you want to utilize. All right, just see a question. Has Greg made any dope beats while I was gone? So yeah, we got the whole pattern editor, and we gave away 4,000 different drum beats. Now, yeah, to check out the pattern editors, lots of great stuff. Let's see, Pablo is also waiting for the VST3 versions of the Lexicon plugins. All right, Ezra just asked, hi Greg, tell us more about the MIDI Retrospective and the MIDI Retrospective and the Cubase has an audio retrospective feature. Okay, so let's say I was just noodling around. Let's say I'm over here. We have, let's say, I'm just here and I'm just like, oh, okay, I came up with like the greatest idea of all time, and I'm just like, oh, why didn't I record that? So if we actually just come right here to the retrospective record, now that would automatically get recorded in with, so as we look at it here, all of my MIDI data would automatically show up just directly in the record. So everything I just played was right there. So it will buffer like 10,000 MIDI notes. Now let's say I was doing an audio recording. So I want to do an audio recording of this. So I'm going to take this output, I'm going to add an audio track, and we want the track instrument output. So say the Bach cello, I'm going to take that output from that instrument, add a track here, and then we will record the cello sound. So let's say and then if we go into your preferences or settings and go into record audio, at this point, we could just say, we see this audio pre-record in seconds. So we could go, I think, up to a minute. So let's say I'm playing this, and so let's say I'm playing, and now I punch in. All right, so now we have an audio recording, but let's say I missed the very first note. So what I could do now is just roll back 1 second, and as we do that, we play the audio. So where I started recording was here, but what I actually recorded came before that. So by 1 second, so we could buffer the audio recording just to capture. So, on the MIDI, we could just do the retrospective recording, get many more notes, but audio, we could get up to, I think it's up to 60 seconds of like a pre-record buffer. And for the audio, all you have to do is, if you have that buffer on, just go to the start position and just simply move that start position over to the left. So it actually kind of starts right here. At that point is where I hit record, but it was buffering 1 second before so that I could capture that pre-record data if you want. Okay, so we see Troca just says, Sensei, I mean the latest feature and update that kind of chops each note so you can level each bit of the event. All right, so this is kind of some of the new functionality that was added. We'll show it here quickly. Just got a text message from Peter Frampton. I'll call him back after. I'm going to blow off Peter Frampton just to hang with you guys. All right, so let's look at this folder here. I will come over. So let's say I want to do just some quick like volume editing, like clip gain. So one of the things that was added in 14.02 is a really handy feature. So let's say if I'm here, if you hold down the Command or Control plus the Shift key with the range tool selected over an event, now we could just kind of come over here and say, oh, that bit was a little too loud. If I come here, we can just adjust the volume of different events very easily so that we could make this louder, softer. So if you had like a breath here, we could just kind of diminish the breath. And this will just kind of automatically find kind of the different sections of the song. So you say, okay, I want to take that and bring that down. So this makes it kind of very fast and easy to find different sections. So if you're on a drum loop, we could come over and I could just come here and say, oh, that hit was a little too loud or too soft. And that will just allow us to make these particular edits and to regulate different volumes very easy. All right, sorry, my chat field jumped on me. Okay, so I think I found my spot. All right, let's see, Mark Rabin's gonna be back later. He just got honeydewed from his wife, probably. All right. All right, we have Bunker 156 Rome Vinyl sending greetings from Rome, Italy. It's a beautiful city. Wish I could go there more. All right, so we see JD says, thanks, Greg. It's Universal Audio Interface. This is one where the audio wasn't showing up. It says it worked normally until the weekend. Pro 14. As you, I go to audio connections, but it simply does not show up as an option in control room or output okay as input. So let me know if you're running on Mac or Windows, because that can make a difference. Also, if you have it set. Yeah, it seems strange. Let me know, like, if you see the outputs listed here, like in your operating system level. So you might see it on the Windows platform. Like if you go to your sound settings and make sure that it's not there. But if you want to send me like just a screenshot of your audio system setup, and if you click here, so one, make sure that you have the ASIO driver selected. So when we come over to your studio menu to studio setup, that it's not using like a generic like ASIO driver that's communicating with the operating system driver versus the ASIO driver. So if you could send a picture of that just to make sure that that driver didn't get switched here. So it should probably say like UAD ASIO as opposed to, or Universal Audio ASIO, something along those lines. But if you want to send me a screenshot of that and maybe your audio connections, and let's say if you go to your outputs, if you see it listed here, or make sure that maybe it's being utilized, the outputs are being utilized somewhere else in the operating system that's kind of blocking Cubase from accessing it. All right, you see Michael Marshall checking in from Somerset, UK. We see Uno Momento had to download twice for 14.02. All right. All right, so you see Joe Owens. Hi, Greg. Using Compressor, the output appears to be a few dB higher than the input, particularly when 100% to mix side. This means you can't gain stage using the makeup gain. Example, use default setting, turn mix 100%, adjust sensitivity till just compressing. All right, so I'm not sure which compressor you're doing, but let's take a look and say, if we are here, I think I may have... All right, I'm just going to turn the volume down. I'll just put an oscillator on a tone here. All right, so we'll go to Tools. And I'll just put the test generator. All right, so let's say we'll put this at, we're at minus 18 dB. Let me just check the, yeah, so we're at minus 18 here. Let's put a compressor on that channel. I'll just put the compressor after it. Okay, so we're still at the same level. Let's just go ahead and all right, so we see that we have kind of, let me just, all right, let me just reopen it here real quick. Let's do it from scratch. Okay, so let's add a new audio track. Okay, so we'll come over here to Tools. Again, our test tone generator. All right, and put our compressor on with, Yes, it does look a little different. Let me just see if I go to the channel now. Let me try just recording so that the compressor is not coming after. So I'll just write the compression into the file. I'll just put down the input channel. Okay, so I'll just so I'll just record for a little bit here. All right, so now we have test tone here. I'll solo this track. Okay, so let's look at our fader here. I have it set to minus 14.5. So we're looking at our meters here, minus 14.8. Let's put a compressor on with no. I'll take off the ratio here, but so minus 14.8. So it looks like it's the same settings here, whether the plugin is on or off. So if I take that plugin away, so whether the plugin is on, it still looks like it's the same level. But let me know if it is a if it's a different compressor plugin. But that looks the same level with the plugin on or off. All right. Let's revert that. Okay, it says use default setting, turn mix to 100%. So, but yeah, so it looked like the same settings to me. All right. All right, Paul Claridge asks, Greg, is there a preference when dragging files it goes to the start and not to the cursor? So I think that, depending on, like, if we have files, let's say I have this particular track selected here, so let's open up folders, that if I import a particular track, so let's say if we double click, it's going to automatically, I think it may put it at the left position. So if you drag a track in here, let's say if I just drag that track right to bar 1, it goes right there. And if we just kind of drop it on the timeline, it will kind of fall wherever we let go of the mouse. So if you just drag, you could just drop it and drop. I think if we just drag the track in, that it goes to the cursor positions. Like if we want that, if we want to add a track, then it's going to go to the cursor position. But if you have the existing track, you could just drag it right to whatever position you want. All right, so you see Dallas LaRue says I got Artifact Guitar. I can't get the presets to sound in preview. I may not have that. It's still installing new stuff, but I may not have the Artifact Guitar. Let me just take a look. Yeah, I don't have that installed currently, but I could have it installed for Friday's live stream, so that we could, so I could show it to you then. Sorry about that. So Pablo's just asking, what Mac has Greg? All right, yeah, so just last month, about 3 weeks ago, I got a new Mac from work. So we look at it. It's an M4 Max with 64 gigs of RAM and I think 2 terabyte hard drive. All right, Babel asks, what is the recording process like in Cubase? Can you go over comping, record modes, punching in, playlist? Okay. All right, so I'll just kind of set up a track, and then I'll set up a kind of a recording from that. So maybe I'll just do like an instrument track, so we'll get like a groove agent part playing. Okay, so let me just load up a quick kit here. Okay, so say I'll just have a project playing here. We'll do some audio recording, but I'll just have this generate some sound for us. Okay, so let's say I want to put this in a quick loop. Okay, so let's go over some different record modes. All right, so I'll just have this follow the transport. All right. I'm going to add an audio track, and this is what we're going to be recording in from Groove Agent. Okay, so so can you go over take comping, record modes, punching in, playlist. Okay, so let's say I want to do a quick comping. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to put this into like a quick cycle record mode. So I'm going to activate cycle. So now when we come over, so we'll have just couple bars here. So we're going to do this. It's going to do take 1. Then we'll see take 2. Take 3. So we'll do a couple passes here. We'll do one more. All right, so let's say we have a number of takes. They're all on the same track. So what we could do is come over here. If we wanted to switch between our different takes, I could just see, okay, I want take 1 or take 3, take 5, whatever we want. If we you have a function for lanes, and if you don't see this lanes function, what you could do is right click and go onto track functions, and it may be in the hidden controls, so we could just simply add that to the visible controls and hit OK. And now with our lanes, now what we could do is use what we call the comping tool, which is this little hand, and we can say, okay, I want to take I'm going to turn my snap off, say I like this part of this take, this one of that. We could audition different parts and components of our takes, so we could do a comp kind of just like that. And if we close the lanes, and if we wanted to audition, I could come over here, hold down the the control or command key, and we could click and audition each lane, say, okay, I really like this one. And now we could close the lanes, and all those different takes would be comped like that. Now, if we wanted to do a punch-in, there's two different approaches. One is that we could just move, let's say I want to do a punch-in of like on one beat here. So I can set my left and right locators. We'll do one measure. So as we do this, and on the transport, we could hit the I and the O button. And so on the keyboard, or hit these icons right here. So now as we play, Cubase will go into record and pop out of record. So, and if we want to do takes, so let's say if I take the loop off, I can now just come here. It's going to punch in. Now, if we wanted to do a punch in within a loop, so let's say we have this going on. Let me just say we're here, and I want to punch in just one beat. So, but I want this to continue to play. What we could do is something called a punch point. So if we go to your transport, what I want is to set punch points to selection range. So I'm going to grab my selection tool here, and we can see that these lines will appear. And now I could activate, let's say I want to loop this particular area, but we could move these punch points to be within a particular region. So we activate this. So now we could loop two measures, but we could only punch in and punch out on this one particular beat. So as we come here, so that way if you wanted to give a context for someone and say, okay, take a couple of different stabs at it, you can just come right over there and do punch-ins kind of based on the left and right locators, or you could have the left and right locators do the cycle and set with punch points. And again, we could access that from the transport menu. So we could say, let's go to the punch in, punch point, or punch out, and you could set it based on the project position. And so if we wanted to do playlists, so let's say we have a number of these files here. So let's say I wanted to take all these files as lanes. So this is one continuous recording, but what we could do is I could select the lanes if we wanted to, and we could say I want, so one of the things we could do is if we wanted to do kind of another form of editing, we could say we could create tracks from lanes. Now each of these will be tracks, but if I wanted to do, let's say, just like a recording, and this would be kind of very similar to like playlists concept. I think it's a Pro Tools term. We call them track versions. So I'm going to come over here. Let's say I want to do just a quick recording on a range here. So I'll do, let's say, one measure. I'm going to open up here. So let's say, okay, we're going to do one measure of recording. So I'll come here. Let's just hit record. I'm going to take off my cycle. So record. All right. Now, if we wanted to have this be what we call a track version or a playlist, we could just say new version. And now I could come here and let's come over here. Let's do a new version again. And now I could do a different variation. So let's say we'll just punch in. And now if I wanted to switch back and forth between those 3 versions that we recorded, I can come right over here on this particular track and just switch between our different recordings or track versions, which I think is very similar to in concept to playlists. So let me know if that's helpful for you, Babel. We see Jack on Faders is also interested in playlist, and we could have for the track versions not only audio but MIDI but tempo tracks, so lots of great stuff. All right, Roland Stuff just asks, hi Greg, I'm thinking of adding a new hard drive dedicated to just Cubase, VSTs, programs, applications, the lot. Is there any downside to not using a PC C drive at all, please? I would probably, have all of my, I would still, you could record, you could have Cubase installed to a dedicated drive, but there's still going to be some components that needs to be on the operating system drive. What I would do personally is install Cubase on your C drive and have all the content and instrument content and samples and loops and audio recordings and video files on the drive. Because there's sometimes it may need to look for a particular codec that's kind of tied to the operating system, and that's easier not to have as an issue if the program is on a C drive. So the program isn't big, but I think you could have some people do it, but I would still suggest probably having, and maybe other people could share, I haven't personally tried it in a long time, having Cubase just installed on an external drive versus the just the content, which is the vast majority of like space and size on the external drives. All right, Brad Risley says, my audio performance meter bounces and spikes even when there's no audio playing. I was hoping the C14 update last week would fix it, but it didn't, and nothing I've tried in the forums has worked. Some plugins will still be processing audio. Let's just jump back to that CPU test project here. So there is a preference. So sometimes there is a quick preference. That some plugins will just still utilize CPU. So you see right now I'm using very minimal CPU. And if I go to my settings or preferences and we go to, I think it's under VST plugins, there's a checkbox here for suspend VST3 plugin processing when no audio signals are received. So if that's checked, so if I uncheck this, then the plugins are going to be taking up their processing, and we'll see this probably gradually rise a little bit. But as I play, let's say I play this now. So you can have a preference just to make sure that when there's no audio playing, that the plugins aren't processing audio. And I think by default this is unchecked. So try to go to your preferences or settings to VST to plugins and make sure that suspend VST3 plugin processing. So if that is unchecked, the audio can be taking up. Your plugins that are present in a project can be taking up CPU, can be increasing the audio performance. But that's one of the cool things with VST3 is that you could turn that off. So if a plugin only comes in on the chorus and not the verse, and you have other plugins and other tracks, that those plugins aren't processing if there's no signal present. So check that particular preference. But anytime you have plugins on, it's playing. But that one preference, if you're not playing, should make it so that the processing is minimized when it's not actually passing audio. Okay, so we see Pablo is going to be buying the Songwriters and Crisp and Crushed when the sales come in. All right, so we have Pastoral Apologetics checking in from Southeast Texas. Thanks for joining us. All right, so you see Michael from Coast Mastering about his project templates. Yeah, so check again. So if you go to Media Bay, and while you're here, again, just go, and I know you sent me like under user content, and here where we just say project templates on the left-hand side to rescan that. If you have the projects and you could see them in that templates folder, you can try to just simply open the project again from that location, and at that point save it as a template. But so if you navigate, so if we come over here, let's say to our media bay, and we say, okay, I want to go to let's say my project template here. So let's say here's one that we did and then if we say reveal in Finder, try just to open that, let's say with Nuendo or Cubase. We'll activate it. And then try saving. So let's say this is our template. Then try saving the template again if that still doesn't work, and see if that does a trick for you. Thanks for being on, Michael. Hope you're well. All right, so we see George says I was dedicated about the scroll wheel. Says in the MIDI window, when I scroll to the right, it goes to the right, but in the mixer window, not the lower zone, it scrolls in the opposite direction. So I thought that it was one of the release notes that I had read was that some of it was changed. So let's say if I scroll here, let's see if my direction is the same. So I will come over. Let's add and MIDI track. Okay. It's my 21st century composition. All right, so I'm in the MIDI window. I'm going to scroll upward and it navigates to the right. Let's go to the mix console. I scroll upward, it navigates to the right. I scroll downward, it navigates to the left. I come here. I scroll leftward. So it seems like it's doing the same consistent behavior in the mix console here. So I'm scrolling upward in the MIDI editor, downward in the MIDI editor lets me go earlier in time, upward goes right in time. I go to the mix console, I scroll down, I go to the left, and scroll up, I go to the right. So let me know if I'm doing, and that's, I have kind of a vertical scroll wheel that seems to be like just a typical mouse scroll wheel. So yeah, and let me just, so it says he has a dedicated horizontal scroll wheel. So try to see if you have the same behavior with the if you have a vertical and horizontal, if it behaves differently on your vertical. But on my scroll wheel, it's behaving consistently between the two editors. See, George says, by the way, love the 14.02 update, offers some great features. All right, the artist knows love, great to see you on. And it says, please hit the thumbs up button, everyone. Thank you. All right. See, Troca just says, Greg keeps making bangers, and then he makes the greatest idea of all time. We just witnessed datey stuff. I had to go back and see what I was doing 21 minutes, 30, 40 minutes ago. But thank you for the kind words. All right, Babylonia Studio says, is having pre-record buffer really high going to slow down my computer or take a significant amount of storage? So the buffers, it doesn't affect your storage at all. It doesn't slow down a computer, but it will add more latency. So if you're playing a virtual instrument in real time, it may be too high for a lot of people's comfort. So many people, as they are recording and playing in virtual instruments, may work with a lower buffer size, and as they're mixing, if they're doing an involved project, may raise the buffer size, but it doesn't require any more storage or slow down a computer. Just like you may notice that the actual latency, like when you hit play and the transport may be increased, and as you play a MIDI note, or as you're recording through plugins, that may have more latency during your tracking process. All right, so we see Troca says, so in PC, Control Shift on range mode equals noted. All right, Babylonia Studio says, how do you make sure that the timecode is embedded into the audio file when you bounce? So any file that's recorded in a Cubase is going to be time-stamped already. So when you do that, it's not... So I'll just give it a quick shot here. So let's say I come here to the audio recording. We'll start at measure 165. Okay, so I come here. Let's say I now choose Edit, Move to Origin. All right, so I'm going to bounce that file. I believe that the metadata will be the same. Let me just come here. So we'll come over to my audio menu and say Bounce Selection. So now this is a new file. I'll move this, and we'll say Move to Origin. And it's maintained still within that. So when you do a bounce selection or render in place, that's automatically going to maintain the particular timestamp for you. See, Jazz Dude says, please use 440 hertz and not 1 kilohertz or even 220 hertz. 1 kilohertz is for Guantanamo Bay. So that's the funniest thing I've read in a long time. All right, so we see Joe Owen just says that's the right compressor balanced to 100% mix. I didn't try sine wave, but got with pink noise as well as a piano VST. All right. All right, so I'll try it again real quick here. All right, let me just... All right, so let's try it one more time here. so we're gonna okay, so let's take this, give it a couple seconds here. All right, so I'm gonna turn it off in the inputs. And we'll just loop this selection. All right, let's look at our fader here. So we're seeing minus 18. All right, and let's adjust our ratio, say 1:1. And all right, so you see it. So I wonder if that might be related to pan law. So let me just check. All right, so you see the, let me try adjusting the pan law. Yeah, so I see the discrepancy here in the plugin. So let's say if we adjust this to 50%. Then it's -3. Now let me see if, so it seems like it should be, all right, so as we do this, we had the same level when it's dry. And let me just see if we adjust these down. It seems, when I look at the levels here, the levels are the same. So if we select, let's say, our output bus here, you know, just looking at these two, those are the same regardless of kind of, and it could also be if we have our meter position. Let's see if that makes a difference. So let's say if we do input metering, so it might be just the post-process metering that's also, so when we come over here, let's say we go to our global meter settings and we set our post fader. So it could be just, but it seems like it should be, this should be the same, but I can see where that, I'll mention it to the development team, see if, but I'll kind of play around with it, see if there's any logic that kind of comes to me why we see the differentiation there. But thanks for pointing that out. I'll go ahead and mute that. If you want to send me an email for a brain cramp reminder, be happy to follow up on that. All right, Babylonia Studio, how does the combine tool thing work? Okay. So it's kind of like we had separate tools for working with, you know, an object selection tool or working with a a range tool. So we wanted to make these kind of work the same method. So it used to be that we have like, historically there was like two separate tools. That we had a range tool that I could come over here and move a range, or if I wanted to get rid of a particular range, we could just say backspace delete. And that when I had my object selection tool, that I could come over here and do fade ins, I could do clip gain, I could, truncate the parts, or kind of move or time stretch, sizing handles. So what we could do is combine these tools. So in the bottom half, we actually have the selection tool, and the top half, it functions as a range tool. So you'll see that as we cross kind of the center axis, that at the top, it is a selection tool, and the bottom it is, or at the top it's the range tool, and the bottom is the selection tool for the whole event, or I could select the range. So we could kind of effortlessly switch back and forth between those, so I don't constantly have to switch tools depending on my function. So if I click here, we have in the upper area, it's my range tool. So if I say, okay, I want just to, duplicate that part, or if I want to just say, okay, I want this part to be shorter and to do a fade out, we could just do those functions with the range tool. So this kind of gives me the best of both worlds when the selection and range tool are defined for a lot of editing options. All right, Bone Splitter just says, okay. All right, sorry, another question in between. Okay, Babylonia Studio says, is there a way to render all pre-fader plugins but not post-fader? All right, so let's see if we could do this. So I think generally they're all going to be all right, let me just, so we'll have Chopper as kind of a post fader. So I'll come here, let's say on. Okay, so let's come here. I'm going to do this particular file, the chopper, which will be obvious. So come over here to modulation. So let me just solo this. All right. So let's put something obvious, maybe a flanger, and I'll move this to post fader. Okay, so let's see. We might have to use a project logical editor to disable. We'll see if we could disable post fader plugins, maybe. Not sure if we could do it, but we'll give it a try. Okay, so we'll say container type is equal to track. And we'll just say that the property is that it is selected. So I'm not sure if we could do track operation, if pre or post fader. So we could disable tracks, and every track can have a different number, like a dynamic number of pre and post fader inserts. So there isn't a way to automatically do it. We could say, enable insert slot by number. So here I could say disable insert slots, 14 and 15. So I can say, okay, let's disable. So when I come over here on that track, so if we know kind of roughly where our post fader slots are, if we're consistent, we could say, disable slots 15 and 16 or 8 and higher, but not specifically that I know of a way to turn it on and off to disable by pre or post fader. So when you do it, it would include all of them unless you specifically tell it to turn it off. All right, Bone Splitter asks, hi Greg, can you explain the new MIDI modifier setup so I could do in 14.0.2 to adjust audio wave levels? When I do Command Shift, it pulls the whole audio instead of that one section. Okay. All right, so as we come over here, let's say one thing that a lot of people miss is they'll come over. I'll just split this, make it a little easier to see for demonstration purposes. All right, so if I come over here, while if I have the objects, if I have the selection tool active, so now I could just come here and adjust the overall clip volume. So that's with the selection tool. Now if I go into the range tool and hold down the same modifiers, I can now just do the selection. So make sure that you have, and if you're working with the multi-tool, so here I could do the whole selection. If I'm at top, I could adjust just the volume on that one particular clip. So it sounds like you're in with the selection tool as opposed to the range tool. Everyone knows my favorite Groove Agent preset now. Okay, I do like that one. And Pablo does as well. All right. All right, we have a question from Mr. Morpheus. Just says, sorry, let me just navigate here. Mr. Morpheus, hey Greg, I got a session to mix, but is there a command in preference where I can move all the tracks in the order that I want, please? Moving the track order. So, I mean, you could, just easily kind of in the project window move the tracks like so. So you can move the tracks in the mix console now. So if we just kind of grab the mix console, you could take a number of tracks here. But there's no automatically move bass drum to top, move the vocals to channel to number 6, because a lot of those types of functions may not work if there's different track numbers. But you can take whole sections and freely move it around in the mix console or in the project window. See, Roland Stuff says, thanks you for your advice about not putting Cubase itself on an external drive. Noted I presumably change the target folder and download assistant depending on what I'm downloading and installing. Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. But maybe if someone else has experimented with putting Cubase on a non-system drive on Windows, if they could share if their experience with it. All right, so we have Raw Justice Hip Hop. Says just finished his exam, checking in from Capitol Heights, Maryland. So probably just a few miles from me, just across the river in Alexandria. All right, so we see it says, Greg, please, is there any way to full screen Cubase window on Mac without having to disable the bottom bar for Mac OS? It's so annoying. It's been like this since forever. So do you not want to, like, do you want it where this doesn't, like, your programs don't show up in the bottom, so, and I think that in previous versions, like for the top, let's see if I can, may not have set the preference for it. But so let me know if the full screen menu, if the full screen to you is not seeing any of this pop up. Let me know that. Okay. And we just see, let me see if I still have that project available. Someone just mentioned about, isn't that what the makeup gain? So let me see if I still have that project. Okay, so yeah, I still have the project open. So we have just comment from Tricks dropped about, is it just the makeup gain that's doing it? So let's take a look at it. Again, I'll turn the volume down. So we kind of look at it. I mean, we see the levels here being the same. So it could be a combination, but let's say if I so I'm not sure if that's having an impact or not, but when we look at it here, but let's see if we adjust the threshold up, that doesn't make a difference there. Yeah, I'll kind of play around with it some more and see if I can, or maybe get an answer on that. Okay. All right, Mr. Morpheus just says when I drag from the mix console, it doesn't move. So make sure that you are running, you need Cubase 14 to be able to do that from dragging from the console. So if we come over here, it's a Cubase 14 feature. So if we want to take a number of tracks, if you have 13, it's not going to move. That functionality was added in Cubase 14. So we could just come over, select them all, and move them where we want. All right, we see Recycle app on. We forgot to announce themselves, sending greetings from Finland. Thanks for popping in and saying hello. All right, Walter Till asks, hi Greg, are external samples in the drum track stored in the project? So yeah, they are now. So it's kind of maybe a two-step process. So let's say we do a new project here, and I add a drum track. Okay, so I'm going to add the drum track, and this is one of the changes in 14.02. So we go to our pool window. You can see we have no audio. I will come over to, let's say, to drop a sample into the drum track. Clear my throat. So as I drop my one-shot sample in, now as we do this, we'll go to my pool window, and we'll see that the audio has been kind of dropped into plugins, to Steinberg, to drum machine, and right now this is keeping kind of the original location of the file. So if I drag and drop another file in, and we go to our pool window, you can see that these are still maintaining their original sample location, but what we could do now is just come right over here and say prepare archive and hit proceed, and the pool is ready for archive, and now those files have moved from their original location into the project folder. So that was one of the new things that was added in 14.02. So you used to just kind of keep the samples always in their original location, but now they could be kind of put into the audio pool so you can know where the original file is, or prepare archive to make those files stay. All right. Okay, RFB just says when I hit add to my MIDI controller, confirm it works, but then when I want to make a key command with confirm to open something, I can't find a key command confirm in the list. Can you show me that? Thanks. So I think a lot of times the confirm is just kind of goes with the enter key. So since it's kind of tied to the operating system, so it could be just, if you select the enter key instead. So when you come over, let's say if we go to, let's see if it's an assignable keyboard function. So we'll come over here to key commands, and I'll just search. So you could try to just hit the function for the return key if that's the confirm, but let me know exactly where you're getting the confirm message from, and we might be able to kind of get you down like a different path, if that makes sense. All right, great to see Donkey Flip joining us from London. All right, Raw Justice Hip Hop says, Greg, you convinced me I'll be a Cubase 14 user by the weekend, finally leaving 13 behind like 2024. If you maybe wait a couple weeks, I'll give you a hint. All right, we see DaVinci Girl is saying hello, that she's back. You see Pro Wash DFW retracted. All right, John Barry says, I like using the archive to pull in sample files. It says, I like using archive to pull in sample files to the project folder. I have lost samples used in Groove Agent before. I take it works for Groove Agent too. So it's a little different for Groove Agent because if we do this for, like, let's say a sampler track inside of Cubase, let's say we come here to sampler track and I drag a file in my sampler track and we go to our pool, we could see that the sampler track is also just indicated. Now the sampler track and the drum machine don't work as external instruments. Groove Agent, SE, Groove Agent, Halion, they all work as external instruments. So tying it to the project when it, the content should be tied with a particular instrument instead. So it's going to work a little differently. So since these are kind of always existing inside of a Cubase project, that's why I think it makes sense personally to have this at the pool level and to be stored at the project level. But with Groove Agent, if you run into that scenario, what I would do, and I do this with Halion samples a lot as well. So let's add an instrument track. We'll do a Groove Agent SE. I'll drag samples here. All right. So we have our samples and everything is as expected. So I would right click and would say export kit with samples. We'll give it a name. So let's say this is going to be our March 18th project. All right. And we could choose our folders here. So I want to create a new folder. So we'll call this Groove Agent Data. Okay. And let's say we want to put this folder. I'll just hit OK. So let's come over here. Let's say, okay, I want to go to my project folder here. So let's say, okay, let's go to Documents. And we're going to go to Projects. And let's go to March 14th. Or March 18th, rather. All right, so I'm going to make a new folder here. And we'll call this our Groove Agent Samples. And I guess I don't need to capitalize it all. So, okay. So now let's say if we go back. So now when we come over here to March 18th, we'll see our Groove Agent samples. And this is a subtle thing. If you just click on Export Files right here, it's really incredibly easy to miss. Could be the secret. We'll come right over here. So we'll call this, our preset is March 18th. Now I hit OK. So I'm going to go look at this folder in Finder. So we'll say, okay, let's go to Projects, to March 18th. All right, and now we'll see our Groove Agent samples, and all the samples are going to be stored right within the project folder. So now that's great if you want to do that, but if you wanted to use those Groove Agent samples in other projects, that's when you'd probably want it to be not tied to the particular project. But if you want the Groove Agent kits and all the samples that you've made to be stored directly into the project, just simply do go through within Groove Agent, just the export kit with samples, and navigate here to the project folder, and then you could just load up those samples within that project all the time. And when you save the project, it's going to look into that particular location, and now everything could migrate with one project folder without other files. But again, because Groove Agent could be used as a different, in other programs, or standalone. At that point, that's why it's not necessarily as tied to the project like the drum machine and the sampler track. All right. Okay. All right. So we see. Okay, so you see RFB just says confirm. You can find when you assign your MIDI remote, when you assign your MIDI controller. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the MIDI remote. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so it says using the. All right, so you see from RFB confirm is like you can find when you assign your MIDI remote, when you sign your MIDI controller using latest version of Cubase. So let's say if I'm here, let's say I have my choice os controller. So let's say if I'm adding, let's say if I take this particular fader, let's say I delete this object and go to put in. All right, so let's see if it's maybe in, let's say default mapping pages. So okay, so just saying RFB, just saying when you're, maybe it's accessing now the controller. So let's say if I'm here, sorry for being dense on my side. So let's say if, okay, so maybe it was in the mapping page here. So let me just see if this is when we go to the mapping assistant. So let's say if I wanted to confirm, let's see if this is the area. So let's say if I want to do this. Okay, so let me know. All right, so I'm just trying to find where the confirm key is. Let's say if I do that, I could assign the function. Okay. So I'm not sure if you're looking for confirm here. Okay, so focus, confirm. All right, so let me try on a different MIDI editor here. Okay, one that has buttons on it. Okay, so let's say I want this button here for confirm. Sorry for being so dense about this. All right. All right. So I want, move this cable here. So I want this. So I'm not sure if, let's see. All right. So if I'm here. All right. Okay, so he says find it there, but not in the key commands. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, let's look under focus. So it's right here under focus. Looks like it's confirm right there. So let me know if that's what you're looking for. It's under the focus category, confirm. All right, so we have a question. Hi, would you like to share the hardware system you're using now? So it's a fairly recent, maybe about a month old. So MacBook Pro M4 Max with 64 gigs of RAM. So that's my system. I just see from RFB, it just says this is what he was searching for. So, I'm running 14.02. So let me know if you're running 14.02, but it looks like it is there. So if you get a key command in the focus category, just confirm. You could also try to see if, I don't think I put that as a user assigned key command. So let's see if we come over here to focus, if that's the default key command. So that looks like Option plus Shift plus Spacebar. Looks like that is the key command. So you can see if the key command works already. So maybe that key command will do the functionality that you're looking for, because that looks like a factory assigned key command. Okay, it says, yeah, he has the latest version. So, but yeah, it looks like it's showing up for me. Okay, let me jump to some user questions that were mailed in. All right, so we had a question from last live stream. Can I have 2 edit channel settings window open at once? Sorry, I had a brain cramp last week. I apologize for. It was Friday. All right, so let's say I have, just add a couple other tracks here. All right, so I go here to track 1, and let's say I have like EQ dip. I go to track 2, I have an EQ bump. Let's go to track 3. I want to roll off to a high pass filter. Let's do a low pass filter. All right, so we can see that as we select these different tracks, that we can see that this particular window updates accordingly. But if we come to this little drop down menu and we just say follow E button, I'm going to uncheck the follow E button of the selection changes. So now when I go to open up the edit channel button, I can have multiple edit channel windows open. So they'll often kind of just go on top of each other. So now when I come over here, we'll say, let's go to audio 2. So just kind of come over here to the upper right hand corner, and then you could just choose for that not to follow the edit channel settings, so that we can have multiple channel settings windows open all the time. All right, we had a question mailed in, how to export a project using the arranger track without flattening the project first. I think we showed this last time as well. It's a question Pablo had. So let's say we have a project here that's utilizing the arranger track. Didn't like that project. All right. All right, so we'll just open up this project quickly. So say, okay, so we have the arranger track going on in this project so that it's playing back in a non-linear fashion. So when we come over, we could say, okay, just to show this, if people haven't utilized the arranger track before, we could say, okay, I want to go to the intro. Instead of it playing from left to right in a linear fashion, we could just have it kind of jump. So we could define different portions of the project as an arrangement track. Now we could have subparts. So this way our project can kind of jump around and we could have different play orders. In the previous versions, if we wanted to export the file, we would have to flatten the play order, and that would turn it from a non-linear arrangement into a linear arrangement. And but now with 14.0.2, one of the new things that was added is when we go to our export audio mixdown, we'll come over here, and in the bottom we could say the arranger track, and we'll say I want to take play order 1, and let's go ahead and export it to and create an audio track. So we'll say export audio. And now it's going to export our nonlinear arrangement as a linear track. So we'll just see that. Going to export it. Our play order. So that's how we could just simply do. So again, come over here to export audio mixdown and choose to export via the arranger track. All right, next question we had. Just jump back to. Sorry, just. All right, so let's go back to our next question. Are there any existing MIDI patterns in the drum track? All right, so when we're working with the drum track itself is just an instrument, and it often works in conjunction with the, so it's going to work in conjunction with the play, like the pattern editor. So when we go to the pattern editor here, so the drum track doesn't have any internal sequencer whatsoever. So it's going to have all of our different sounds. Now when we go to the pattern editor, so there's no like presets that come with it, but the intention is for you to make your own presets. But if you want presets, you could just come right over here and click on the random. So let's say if I'm just kind of playing along here, I could just click on random, and we could just have not only a particular part randomized. So let's say I want to come over here to the snare. We could say I want to randomize parts for snare drum. Or if you want to randomize entire beats, you can just come right over here. So I could just say, okay, let's come here, let's do a new pattern and randomize. And then we could just say, let's go back to pattern 1. That was randomized here. So while there's no patterns that come with it, the real design intention is you could kind of use AI functionality to generate. So it's not going to, and you could have different algorithms, kind of specifically set for drum, for kick and snare and hi-hat and, cymbals and toms. So those will be set, or you could have it be completely random as well. So if you didn't want it, and you could adjust different functions for randomness. So there's no particular presets that come with it, but the concept was that it's super easy to make your own. Okay, and then we have a question, how can I take a pattern from Groove Agent or just any MIDI and convert it to a MIDI pattern? So we can't necessarily take the MIDI out of here and drop it in, but if we wanted to make a MIDI part on the project window, I'll come over. So let's say, okay, I want to open up this particular kit, and if we want to drag this onto the project window, so let's say if I'm just kind of playing it here, what I could do is just simply drag and drop from the particular pattern right onto the project window as well. So you just say, okay, let's come here and just drag and drop the different patterns. So let's say if I do it to the correct instrument, that would help. So now you could just drag and drop from Groove Agent right there. But we can't drag and drop into the pattern editor because it's utilizing kind of different technology. So once we have a pattern, I could take, let's say, our particular drum machine pattern here. So if I want to drag this pattern out, I could drag this particular pattern out. Let's go to pattern 2. And I want to come over here and we can say, okay, now I want this to switch to pattern 2. And then we could select both of them and say convert pattern to MIDI if we wanted to do further editing. But we can't necessarily go from here into here because this is doing stuff that normal sequencers are playing linearly don't do. All right. All right, let's jump back to our live questions. And thanks for sending questions in advance. You can always send them to clubcubase@steinberg.de. All right. Okay, I think I found my spot. All right, Heartbreak Time Machine has smashed the like button. Pablo is just saying, what? Let's see. Pablo saying, nice new feature. So Jazz Dude says, asked me if I joined the Discord yesterday. So yeah, I was on the Discord yesterday. So when I gave up my old computer, I lost part of my, I lost like 2 years in my master Cubase index file of the timestamps for all of the live streams. So I went to find it there. So I was able to reconstruct it. So it was me pretending to be me. I'm clever with coming up with non-government screen names. All right. All right, so Heartbreak Time Machine says he's got to get back on to Discord, that he misses y'all a lot. All right, so I think I'm at the end of questions. We'll see if there's more questions that kind of sneak in. But I think we got through all the questions. All right, wonderful to see Best Korean Jesus on from San Diego. Here, my son just got home from school. Let's see if there's more questions that sneak in. I want to thank everyone for all your great questions. Hope that everyone's learned a new tip or trick. Michael Teams is giving me 2 trophies. All right. All right, Best Korean Jesus has been lurking since 10:30, which is probably half hour into the live stream. I think he's in West Coast. All right, and there's usually maybe a 20-second delay from when I talk to when you guys hear, so we'll see if there's any questions that kind of sneak in. Let's see, Best Korean Jesus says he rarely has questions anymore, and Gerald Ely is just mentioning great stream, Greg, and spend some time going over that arrangement discussion that you did. Best Korean Jesus says he's learned from other people's questions now. So. And see, Uno Memento says he's going to sauna. So yesterday, just a quick programming note, was our 5-year anniversary when we kind of ramped up the live streams. So if you want, you could take a quick look at some of the stats if you guys are interested. So I'll show a couple here. I have kind of a master spreadsheet. So, all right, so we've had 464 live streams in 5 years. And let's do a quick tally of hours. So 1,667 hours. And we have answered 38,552 questions. So, or that's, yeah, so it's a lot. I just want to thank everyone for just making it so enjoyable to help with live streams. We've had, I think, like over 5 million views of live streams. So just want to thank everyone for making it such a wonderful community. All right. And I could probably get some more info. Let me see if I could find out or see if there's any other questions that come in. I could probably maybe get some more stats on my other computer here real quick. Let's see if I can find this real quick. See if anyone else has questions, but I think I can get a couple more stats. All right, just looking up a couple of stats here on YouTube. Bear with me just for a minute. All right, here's some other stats of live streams. Just getting it added up here real quick. We'll share this. Crunching math here in the background. All right, so live streams just in 5 years, just show you 5.7 million views, 66.1 million impressions. The average view duration is 49 minutes and 35 seconds. And so yeah, 5.7 million views. I just want to thank everyone for all the great participation and for everyone being such a part of the wonderful community over the last 5 years. And all right, let's see if there's all right. So we see Bratman Studios says, "Hey Greg, do you ever think about doing a little 5 to 10 minute how to be for the Q&A?" So yeah, I'm just going to be working on some more Q&A, short form videos as well. So I'll probably be working on those in the next month or so. All right, let's see if there's any other questions that sneak in. I think we may have gone through all the questions. So we'll go ahead, I guess we'll wrap up. I want to thank everyone for all the great questions. I appreciate everyone being part of such a wonderful community. We'll be back Friday starting at 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern, which may be still a little off for daylight savings time. And I want everyone to stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you back Friday. Take care.